I'll look at them.
Okay, we have to, yeah.
Are we starting?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. If I can just ask everyone to take a seat, we need to begin our meeting. Thank you very much. That was a quick way of bringing the room to order. Welcome to meeting number 27 of the Toronto and East York Community Council. We are just going to proceed with the yellow rod paper, but I'd like to gratefully acknowledge that Toronto and East York Community Council meets on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, and Toronto is still home to many diverse Indigenous peoples. Members, are there any declaration of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, can I get a motion to confirm the minutes of our last meeting? Councillor Cressy. All those in favor? That is confirmed. We do have a list of speakers. There will be presentations on some of the items. For those in the public gallery, for those members who are residents and individuals who are interested in speaking on any particular item on the public agenda, please see our staff on your left-hand side there and have your name registered, and we will be able to acknowledge you. So we will be starting on the goldenrod sheets on page 79. This is TE 27.34. It is the first item that is not a timed item, and we'll move forward from there. This first item, item number 34, is the appointments to Business Improvement Area Boards of Management. It affects a great number of wards. Do I have a mover? Councillor Perks, all those in favor? So adopted. Thank you. Item number TE 27.35. This is 88 Queen Street East, the Public Art Plan, Ward 27. I will move to defer this item until our next meeting at Toronto East York Community Council. All those in favor? So adopted. Thank you. TE 27.36, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, Fire Routes 550 Ontario Street, Ward 28. I think I'm here to deal with it. Yeah, I've got all those items. That's okay, thank you. I would move to adopt the recommendations in the staff report. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried, thank you. T 27.37, designation of fire routes and amendments to Chapter 880, Fire Routes 345 Carlaw Avenue, 1190 Dundas Street East, convenience address, Ward 30. It's item number 37, Councillor. Okay, all those in favor? Staff recs? That's carried, thank you. TE 27.38, 75 Broadway Avenue, zoning amendment and rental housing demolition applications, preliminary report, Ward 22.
I move these staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? I think you had an amendment on this. Councillor Matlow, you have an amendment as well? Is that correct?
Could I be reminded, please, of what that amendment might be?
You may, go ahead.
Oh, the expanded notice, absolutely. Yes, get it out to the entire city, please.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, item as amended?
Thank you very much.
That's carried, thank you. T 27.39, 2161 Yonge Street, zoning amendment application, preliminary report, Ward 22.
I move the staff recommendations. I also happen to have an amendment.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, item as amended? That's carried, thank you. T 27.40, 5 Scrivener Square, 4 to 10 and 10R Price Street, and 1095 to 1107 Yonge Street, official plan and zoning amendment application, preliminary report, Ward 27. I would move to expand the notification area, also to ensure that the meeting has provisions and accommodations for those who required accessibility resources, including sign language interpretation and childcare, all this to be borne at the cost of the applicant. All those in favor of the amendment? Item as amended? Okay, that carries. Thank you. T 27.41, 1001 Queen Street East, zoning amendment application, preliminary report, Ward 30.
Chair, I just have a motion for expanded notice, but which I have to get to the clerk, so. Oh, there it is there.
clerks
That's
are
fine.
very
Okay, great.
prepared
There
for
we
you.
go. We're done.
Okay,
Thank you.
all those in favor of the amendment? Those in favor of the report as amended? That carries. Thank you. T 27.42, 286 to 294 Main Street, zoning amendment application, preliminary report, Ward 32. Councillor McMahon.
Good morning, everyone. I will move staff recommendations with the expanded notice area, please.
Okay. Amendment on the screen. All those in favor? Motion as, item as amended? That carries. Thank you. T 27.43, 1285 Queen Street East, zoning amendment application, preliminary report, Ward 32.
Ditto. Moving the staff recommendations with the expanded notice area. Thank you, Councillor Cressy.
Okay, all those in favor? Item as amended? That carries. Thank you. T 27.44, Honda Indy Toronto Race, closure of Lakeshore Boulevard, 2018 to 2020, Ward 19. We'll hold that down. Thank you very much, Councillor Cressy. TE 27.45, construction staging area Phase 1 and 3, Markham Street, Mirvish Village, Ward 19. Would you like to hold that? Okay, thank you, Councillor Cressy. TE 27.46, construction staging area 4, Avenue Road, Ward 20.
Thank you. I have an amendment that can be put on the screen. It's to direct the applicant to work with the STEPS initiative as part of the hoarding. And just a quick note, a couple months ago, this is the Park Hyatt program, and there were concerns related to the hotel workers who would be there. I'm pleased to say that Oxford, the Hyatt, and the hotel workers have come to a settlement, and so this is moving forward in a positive direction, just so everybody's aware. And I want to thank all the parties for their hard work and move the staff recommendations with the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. Item as amended? That carries. Thank you. T 27.47, construction staging area Grand Trunk Crescent, 18 York Street, Ward 20.
Thank you. I have an amendment which is for the STEPS initiative to provide and install the public art, and with that I'll move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, item as amended? Carries. Thank you. T 27.48, corridor safety review. Oh, there are speakers? Okay, we'll hold that down for the speakers then. Oh, sorry, this is TE 27.
We have them registered.
I'm also working on a quick amendment. So TE 27.48, let me just finish reading the title. Corridor Safety Review, Avenue Road, affecting wards 20, 22, and 27. There are registered speakers on the item. We're also just going to hold down the item, not just for the speakers only, but also an amendment that we're working on. Okay, and I'll hold that in my name. Thank you. Now we're moving to deferred items from our last meeting. T 27.49, this is a very long title, bear with me, folks. Potential policy changes and/or bylaw amendments required to implement residential on-street permit parking on streets that do not have permit parking in the Toronto East York District, affecting everyone. The RDEPs? Okay. Oh, and there are deputations, so we'll hold that for speakers. Thank you. Okay, TE 27.50, extension of permit parking hours, Perth Avenue, Ward 18.
Good morning. I have a motion, a small amendment. If I could have your support for the motion.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment on the screen? Okay. Thank you very much, that carries. T 27. Oh, sorry, sorry, one more vote. Item as amended, please. Okay, that carries, thank you. T 27.51, exclusion of the development located at 101, 111, and 129 St. Clair Avenue West from permit parking on Fox Bar Road, Ward 22.
I move staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that carries, thank you. T 27.52, conversion of the east branch of Sumac Street between Eastern Avenue diversion and the north end of Sumac Street from area-based to this street-specific permit parking program, Ward 28. I would move to adopt the staff recommendations in the report. All those in favor? Okay, that carries, thank you. TE 27.53, extension of permit parking hours, Queensdale Avenue, Ward 29. Counselor?
What number is it? 53? I'm actually going to ask for a deferral. Sorry. Staff have identified a problem that wasn't initially I was aware of, and so we need some time to meet with the school and the neighborhood to address those issues, so. Yeah, to the next cycle.
How long would you like?
One, so the next meeting.
Okay,
I'm just mentioning because the closing of our agenda is next week, right? Like it's very tight. Or do you want to do it?
Okay, then it'll be in January.
It's up to you.
Yeah, it'll be January.
okay. So the motion on the floor is to defer the item until the January meeting of Toronto East Shore Community Council to allow for community consultation.
And you need the closing of the agenda, apparently.
All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. That carries. T 27.54, amendment to permit parking regulation Oriole Road and Rhodes Avenue, Ward 22 and 32.
I wonder if there's, I just spoke with my colleague from Ward 32. She'd like to consider Rhodes Avenue further. I'm fine with moving ahead with Oriole Road. So is it possible that I move staff recommendations on Oriole Road and defer Rhodes Avenue to the next cycle?
I think the only way he could do that is actually
To delete one?
to
Okay.
delete one.
Yeah.
And it would have to come back in the report.
I'll take your advice.
So Councillor Matlow, would you like to delete recommendation number 2?
Okay.
And then
Okay.
just simply move recommendation number 1?
Okay, and then you can figure it out with staff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
The next.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor today, to delete recommendation number 2. Recommendation number 2 will be brought back through a different reporting procedure. All those in favor of just deleting recommendation number 2? Okay. Item as amended? That carries, thank you. T 27.55, installation and removal of on-street accessible parking spaces, September 2017, delegated, affecting all wards. Councillor Perks, all those, sorry. All those in favor? You have to indicate your support with just a wink or a blink or something. Okay, that carries. Thank you very much, folks. T 27 point, you gotta show some enthusiasm. T 27.56, installation and removal of on-street parking restrictions, various streets in Ward 20 and 28. I'm going to need to hold this item. I'm sorry, Councillor Cressy. I'm going to need to hold this item because we have a parking amendment to advance. Okay, thank you. TE 27.57, parking amendments, Grand Trunk Crescent, Ward 20. Councillor Cressy?
I'll move the staff recommendations, and thank you to staff for their work on this.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That carries. T 27.58, parking amendments, McCall Street between Baldwin Street and Elm Street, Ward 20.
Again, I'm going to move the staff recommendations, and many thanks to staff for all their hard work to do this.
Okay. All those in favor of the staff recs? Okay, that carries. Thank you. T 27.59, parking amendments, Oakland Avenue, Ward 22.
I move the staff recommendations.
Okay. All those in favor of the staff recommendations? Okay, that carries. Okay. T 27.60, parking amendments, Cumberland Street, Ward 27. I'd like to move the recommendations in the staff report. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. T 27.61, parking amendments, Hiltz Avenue, Ward 30.
I'd like to defer that assignee die, please. I don't know if you have that. Oh, I'll have to get, pardon me? You've got that? Yes.
I don't think that's
No,
what the
I'm sorry,
councillor
I'm
wanted.
deferring it. This one and the next one, sine die, coming back. Sine die. Oh, sorry, indefinitely. Sorry, I was speaking Latin there. That's okay. Thank you. I can't help myself from Latin. Like
Okay,
Latin.
all those there's a motion on the floor to defer the item indefinitely. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. T 27.62, parking amendments, Natalie Place, Ward 30. Councillor Fletcher?
The same. The
Yeah, I know
sine
you
die
have to, you have to
indefinitely.
move it again. Thank you.
To move that again.
Yeah, thank you. All those in favor of the motion to defer indefinitely? Okay, that carries, thank you. T 27.63, traffic control signals, Jones Avenue, Volpe Avenue,
There's
Ward
deputants.
30.
There are deputants.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. T 27.64, stop control Hollywood Crescent and Lady Kirk Avenue, Ward 32.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move staff recommendations to install a stop sign, Hollywood Crescent.
Okay, all
Lady
those in favor? That carries, thank you. T 27.65, turn prohibition Carlaw Avenue and Gerard Street East, South Branch, Ward 30.
Yes, I will move staff recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. T 27.66, right turn on red prohibition and school zone pavement markings, Queen Street East and Carlaw Avenue, Ward 30.
Yes, I'd like to move staff recommendations and say thank you very much to staff. This is part of a school safety zone initiative, and these are red turn on right, which isn't actually in the toolkit, and these pavement markings. So this is very exciting. I'm very happy to do this today.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, indicate your, can you folks just indicate your support for the motion? Okay, thank you. That carries. T 27.67, one-way operation, Boston Avenue, Gerard Street East, South Branch, Ward 30.
I'll move staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Okay, that carries. T 27.68, speed hump poll results, Badge Row Avenue, Ward 30.
I'll move alternate recommendations to install.
Okay, there is a motion on the screen, folks. All those in favor? Okay, item as amended? That carries, thank you. T 27.69, speed hump poll results, Cody Avenue, Ward 30.
I'll move alternate recommendations to install, please.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All those in favor of the alternate recommendation, item as amended? Okay, that carries. T 27.70, speed hump poll results, Empire Avenue, Ward 30.
I will move alternate recommendations to install, please.
All those in favor? Item as amended? That carries, thank you. T 27.71, speed hump poll results, Hiltz Avenue, Ward 30.
I will move staff, no, I will move alternate recommendations to install, please.
All those in favor? Motion on the screen. Item as amended? Okay, that carries. T 27.72, traffic calming, speed humps, Parkman Avenue, Ward 18.
Move alternate recommendations.
Motion's on the screen. All those in favor? Item as amended. That carries. Thank you. T 27.73, traffic calming, speed humps, Aldburn Road, Ward 21.
Move the alternate recommendations.
Okay, motion's on the screen. All those in favor? Item as amended. That carries. Thank you. T 27.74, traffic calming speed humps, Glen Arden Road, Ward 21.
Same?
Okay, moving alternate recommendations. All those in favor? Item as amended. That carries. Thank you. Oops, sorry. TE 27.76, traffic calming speed humps, Simpson Avenue, Ward 30.
So I'll move
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry, I realized I just skipped one. Thank you.
25.
TE 27.75, traffic calming speed humps, Hillsdale Avenue West, Ward 22.
I move the alternate recommendations.
Okay, motion's on the screen. All those in favor? Item as amended. Thank you, that carries. T 27.76, traffic calming speed humps, Simpson Avenue, Ward 30.
So I'll move the alternate recommendations to conduct the poll, please.
Okay, motion's on the screen. All those in favor? Item as amended. That carries. Thank you. T 27.77, traffic calming speed humps, Wolverley Boulevard, Ward 31.
Thank you. I'd like to defer indefinitely. Thanks.
Okay, motion on the floor to defer indefinitely. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. T 27.78, traffic calming speed humps, Osborne Avenue, Ward 32.
Thank you very much. I would like to move alternate recommendations, please.
Motion is on the screen. All those in favor? Item as amended. That carries. Thank you. T 27.79, traffic calming speed humps, Robbins Avenue, Ward 32.
And I would like to do the same, moving alternate recommendations, please.
Motion is on the screen. All those in favor? Okay, item as amended. That carries. Thank you. T 2780, request for legal representation at T-Lab for 569 Arlington Avenue, Ward 21. Councillor Mihevc.
So is this number 80?
This is number 80.
Yes, move approval of the recommendations in the correspondence.
It was a great letter, Joe.
Sorry? Thank you.
As usual.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommendations contained in the letter? Okay.
It's basically to
Any
send someone
opposed?
to TLAB, get legal representation to defend the staff.
Are you, this doesn't look like a fast item. Yes, you can hold that, Councillor. Who would like to hold this? I think Councillor Perks is holding it. Well, I asked for if any opposition and hands went up.
What's the,
I'm just going to hold the item down. You folks can actually have a conversation on the side to clarify. I can also bring it back at a later time. We've got plenty of other business to do. TE 27.81, endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes. I'm going to hold that as the chair. In case there are some last-minute additions, we'll bring that back shortly. TE 27.82, implementation of permit part.
So Councillor, what we need to do then is a motion to add 82 to the agenda.
Okay, yes. We need a motion to add items number 82 to 92 to the agenda. Thank you very much, Councillor Layton. And now let's deal with them. T 27.82, implementation of permit parking on West Lodge Avenue between Queen Street West and a point 136 meters further north, Ward 14. Councillor Perks.
Sorry, Councillor Mihevc and I were distracting each other. This is,
We're 82.
New business.
move approval.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, thank you, that carries. TE 27.83, request for legal representation for T-Lab for 7 Menin Road, Ward.
hold it because it's the same word.
Code, okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to hold this in Councillor Mihevc's name. Thank you. We are now at TE 27.84, amending the existing southbound right turn on red prohibition at Symington Avenue and Bloor Street West, Ward 18. Councillor Bailao.
That's item 84. So I'd like to move the recommendations on the letter.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommendations in the letter? Okay, any opposed? That carries. Thank you. T 27.85, implementation of permit parking on Gladstone Avenue between Peel Avenue and Queen Street West, Ward 18.
Again, I would like to move recommendations on the letter.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. T 27.86, implementation of permit parking on the west side of Abo Avenue, Ward 18.
Move recommendations on the letter.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. T 27.87, Junction Triangle Traffic Management Committee, Traffic Management Plan, Phase 2, Ward 18.
Move recommendations on the letter.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. T 27.88, rescission of alternate Thursday parking on Pauline Avenue, Ward 18.
Move recommendations on the letter.
Okay, all those in favor?
You're competing with
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. T 27.89, reopening of the item TE 24.51, parking amendments, Margarita Street, Ward 18.
And move recommendations on the letter.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to reopen the item? Yes. All those in favor? And then the motion on the recommendation, and a vote on the recommendations contained in the letter. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. T 27.90, Greenwood College Traffic Control Plan, Ward 22.
I move the recommendations in my letter.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. TE 27.91, Ward 32. It is implementation of permit parking on non-licensed streets in Ward 32.
Thank you very much. So moving the recommendations in my letter that just cleans up the streets that were missed in the first round of permit parking implementation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Which brings us to our timed items. But before I do that, I know... Okay, so we're heading back to item number 80. Let me just pull up that page. Request for legal representation at T-Lab for 569 Arlington Avenue, Ward 21, held by Councillor Perks, but it sounds to me, Councillor Mihevik, you've resolved whatever was there.
Move the recommendation.
You're moving the recommendations in your letter. All those in favor? All those in favor of the recommendation in the letter, please indicate your support. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Then we move on to item number TE 27.83, request for legal representation at T-Lab for 7 Menning Road, Ward 21.
Same.
Okay. Motion on the floor to adopt the recommendations contained in the letter. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Okay. Councillor Layton, you had some items that were held by Councillor Cressy. Would you like to dispense with them now?
I have amendments on both items that I've only just sent to the clerk, so I think if we could give them some time, that'd be great. I emailed one and wrote down another.
Okay, thank you. For members who are preparing new business, I have a couple matters myself. If I can just make sure that when you're ready, just send it along to the clerk, and we'll be able to give you some time to introduce it. I'm hoping to introduce all new business before we break for lunch. Okay. I also, before we move directly on to the timed items, I would like to on a point of personal privilege, just announce that the social planning, there's a social planning Toronto prayer for action on the issue of poverty reduction on the second floor of City Hall today at 10:30. Faith leaders from across Toronto representing the rich diversity of our religious traditions will be gathering outside the mayor's office to share a prayer. They are giving thanks and respectfully asking the Mayor and Toronto City Council to fund the poverty reduction plan through the 2018 city budget process. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our first item that is timed for 10 o'clock, and it is now 10:15, so we're not doing bad, is TE 27.1. Item is 102 to 118 Peter Street and 350 to 354 Adelaide Street West. zoning amendment application final report in Ward 20. There are speakers. If I can just call your name and you can appear before us. Max Allen.
So just, Chair, if I might, I believe there's a supplementary report on this, which hasn't been circulated yet, but if the speakers speak now, they won't have had a chance to read that beforehand. And so I'm conscious of that. Could we not hold this down so that members who are here to speak have an opportunity to read the report?
Okay, so there's a request to hold down the motion because the supplementary report has not been circulated, which means we haven't had a chance to read it. I will bring this matter back up as soon as we've had some circulation time and some advanced reading time. Max, if you can just hang on.
Ms. McDougall and I can hang on for a while. Will it be before lunch?
I think so.
Why don't we go back to it after 2
We've got 92 items on the agenda. We've dispensed with a number of them. We don't have long lists of speakers on the following subsequent items. I believe we can probably bring it back quickly.
The counselor is nodding, so I'll sit down.
Okay, thank you, Max. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. TE 27.2, 666 Spadina Avenue, official plan amendment and zoning amendment application. There's a final report. Ward 20, we do have speakers on the item. I'd like to call Sue Dexter, followed by Cole Orme. Sue, welcome.
We've lost Carolee, who doesn't want to speak. You're going to start the day with a victory and with a model for urban development in this city. The site is an existing, it's a 25-story tower in a park. So imagine you've got green, 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 4 sides. The developer came in. We've been working, I would think we did pre-application consultations, and the developer came to us and said, we want to do housing on one flank on the laneway. And we said, gosh, we've got other ideas on the laneway for greening the laneway. Can you have another look at that? So they canceled that. They had, on another flank, they wanted to put in townhouses. And we said, can you think about that? And they said, yeah, we can take them off the area, off that area, and put them on top of the building that we're going to put an infill on the south end. So basically, we start out with 4 areas of green. We wind up out of the community negotiations and with planning with infill green, green, green in a neighborhood that has 0.44 acres of green space, like none. We have none. College to Bloor, Spadina to Bathurst, and this is on Spadina. So these people were absolutely stunning in their responsiveness to us, and they made 2 plans, they held in, they negotiated. The challenge for the city became we could have a park on the north. And but it was over a parking garage. So they had to negotiate closing the parking garage, giving the city rights to the middle of the earth. And we wound up with a public park, a pop space, and listen to this, 133 units purpose-built rental on site, density 4.16, 11 stories, 40% 2- and 3-bedroom units, respect for the angular plane, good transition into a heritage neighborhood, mid-block pedestrian walk-through. I mean, the checklist is astounding. 725 square meter pop space along Sussex Mews Laneway, which conforms to our Green Master Plan, 603 square meters of a public park along Sussex Avenue. It's an amazing thing when a developer constrains their desires, where the community cedes some and says, we'll relax. Yeah, we can come together on this. The councillor's office, the city staff was astounding on this because they didn't say no. They said, we'll try to figure out a way to do this. One of the things that then happened was what was going to happen to Section 37 monies. And I don't know if any of you have been on boards, but sometimes you take a proposal to a board and you never know where the board is going to come out. Half the money was going to go to 14 seniors affordable units, just a couple of houses, couple of properties north of Harvard Village. How is our board going to deal with that? We don't have much opportunity for Section 37. Unanimously, yes, affordable, yes, yes, yes. So this proposition from the beginning has been golden. The process has been golden. Phil Levine, who's over there, has been golden. And we should look at this at a model of community consultation, developer responsibility, good for the city, good for the council, good for the planning department. I mean, it was awful. I was going to write a speech, but it sounded like the Academy Awards. I mean, it's golden. And part of it comes out of our experience with honest eds. We have a system. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to stop right now. Anyway, if there's a deal, though, you guys. No, if there's a lesson in it, if there's a deal, expedite. Incent development that's good. If there's a deal with the community, do whatever you can to make it work.
Thank you.
And so we would thank you in advance.
Thank you very much.
Those guys.
Thank you very much, Sue. Are there any questions for the deputant?
No, I don't think so.
Well, we'll see you again. Thank you. Cole Orme?
No, she's good.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers on TE 27.2, 666 Spadina Road? Sorry, Spadina Avenue, sorry. Okay, seeing none. Councillor Cressy.
Thank you. And I have a motion, if it can be put on the screen. And the motion, it looks long, but it is in 3 parts. One is a couple technical amendments that staff have provided on some specific words. The second is an adjustment on the Section 37, further to what you just heard from the deputant, to increase the amount for affordable housing. And the third is as part of the site plan for a working group, the Honest Eds model, working with the local neighborhood, staff in our office, and the support of the applicant. Let me begin by saying this is a final report. It's an 11-story building, infill, in a neighborhood, and there's one deputant giving an Academy Award speech. That is a symbol of how positive this project is and the process behind it. And to that end, I want to start off and thank city staff in urban design and city planning and transportation services for all their work on this. The Harvard Village Residents Association, who should have been paid for all the work they spent on this as well. And the applicant in particular, that's Cromwell Developments, for building a truly precedent-setting project here. I am exceptionally proud of this project for a number of reasons. The starting point is the process. There was pre-application meetings. There were pre-application working groups and tours of the site. The applicant came to us before they had a concept to meet with us and meet with the community to say, what are your priorities? The result of that over more than 2 years has been a process, an iterative one, back and forth, adjustments to make this site the best it could be. The process worked because everybody worked together, but the result is the following, and I want to just summarize part of it. It's an 11-story infill. It is purpose-built rental, secured as purpose-built rental, with 40% of the units as 2- and 3-bedroom units. It's immediately across from the University of Toronto. So what does that mean? It means that it will probably be half student housing and half couples and family housing. You're building a neighborhood in the building. There is a POP space secured on the alley, where currently it is a surface-level loading zone. There is a park, a public park secured on the corner, at the corner of Spadina and Sussex at 603 square meters. It is appropriately transitioned, it meets the angular planes, and it adjusts well. There is the provision for dog amenities, pedestrian crossing, interior loading and servicing. But here's the best part. The Section 37, which came out to $800,000, initially we had divvied it up, 50% affordable housing, 50% for the implementation of a neighborhood green plan. We found out that there was an opportunity to partner with Wigwaman just north for affordable housing for Indigenous seniors, but it costed a little bit more money. We went to the residents and said, could we decrease the amount of money for the neighborhood green plan and increase the amount for affordable housing? They said yes unanimously. And so this project, not only will it ensure rental housing, family-sized units held there, not only will it contribute to the public realm and provide green space, it will also contribute to affordable housing in the immediate vicinity. I am so proud of this project and the hard work of Cromwell Developments, the local residents association, and in particular our tremendous city staff. And with that, I am extremely proud to move this amendment and the staff recommendations. And so that it can be noted, I'd ask for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cressy. Anyone else to speak? Okay. No? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment on the screen?
If nobody is here to speak, I just want to thank the local councillor because I think this is a great project, and he thanked everybody else, so I think we should thank Councillor Cressy for that his office done. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. All those in favor of the amendment on the screen? Item as amended? Sorry. Recorded vote on the amendment and the? No, just as amended. Okay. Then item as amended. All those in favor? Request for a recorded vote. Councillor Davis, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Fragedakis, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor Matlow, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Bailao. Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. Thank you very much and good work. TE 27.3, Davisville Village Zoning Study, City-Initiated Zoning Amendment. This is the final report. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to this item? No? Okay. Then Councillor Matlow.
We have a presentation.
Madam Chair, I move the staff recommendations, and I'll just sort of parse out something that I think is important for everyone to understand. In the summary, you'll read that the proposed zoning provisions for the Davisville Village neighborhood will help protect its existing physical character by further regulating features of new houses that have significant impacts on the quality of the streetscape and rear yard privacy. Above it, it says that it recommends the adoption of the city-initiated zoning bylaw amendment for the area that no longer permits as of right integral garages in houses and introduces regulations for the size and side yard setbacks of raised rear wall decks higher than 1.2 meters above grade. I believe this should begin a trend that we see across our city, and I am so grateful for the hard work of our city planning staff for leading a very highly consultative process and putting a lot of work into a project when there weren't enough people there to do the work. But they did it, and they did it well. I also want to recognize the South Eglinton Ratepayers and Residents Association for being the ringleaders and initiators of this project, for bringing this to our attention as a priority for the community, and then not only asking for help, but then doing the hard work to help facilitate this every step of the way. This is a model, and I mentioned this to anyone I can find, that ratepayers associations are not always the ones who say no. They're far too often defined by what they say no to. But you'll see in the next item, which will be 1 Eglinton Avenue East, that the South Eglinton Ratepayers and Residents Association is the kind of group, community organization, that finds ways to make things better for the community, to find resolutions. And this is a very important project, and I'm just very happy to support them.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions? Actually, this is just a moving of the staff recommendations, correct? So all those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. TE 27.4, 1 Eglinton Avenue East zoning amendment application, final report. There are a number of speakers on this item. First is Bob Murphy. Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Following Bob will be John Kaser. Okay. Bob, is that John with you right now?
Well, we're not together,
Oh,
but
you're not together, okay, so if you can just let Bob have the speaker, the microphone for now. I'm going to call you again afterwards. I just wanted to prep you to make sure you know you're next. Okay, so I'm going to start your time. You've got 5 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Density at Yonge and Eglinton has reached provincial growth targets for 2036 with 1970 infrastructure. The Eglinton LRT will bring that up to 1990 infrastructure. I'll remind you that in 1978, Paul Bedford said the Yonge Eglinton node is developed to capacity. That was when Ann Johnston was fighting a transit line on Eglinton. That at the time was city policy, and it confirms that planning doctrine can be and is driven by politics. If council should decline to approve this application and the minister is silent, there is no conflict as contemplated by Section 13.2 or 14.2 of the Places to Grow Act. The applicant cannot cite nearby towers as precedent because the Places to Grow Act does not confer property rights. It speaks to an identifiable need that no longer exists, if it ever existed at all. Subsection 5 of Section 3 of the Planning Act says the OMB shall conform to provincial plans, including the growth plan. But does the OMB have the power to ensure a growth plan conforms to the act under which it was created? The stated purpose of the act is that growth be rational, balanced, and efficient, and growth that is 30 years ahead of infrastructure is thus contrary to law, and to support otherwise is to suggest otherwise is to reduce the act to a farce. The consequence of the way 14.2 is written is that a deficient growth plan still overrides an effective official plan. The board has the power to correct deficiencies in our official plan, but it does not have the power to correct deficiencies in the provincial growth plan. Neither, apparently, does the lab. Can it interpret the targets of the growth plan in terms of existing infrastructure, according to 3.5 of the Planning Act? No. Who then has the responsibility of ensuring the growth plan conforms to the act? The minister. Or in the case of ministerial neglect, the courts, because the law mandates that growth be rational, balanced, and efficient. And those 3 words, rational, balanced, and efficient, bear the same force as any other word in that legislation. Moreover, the government must have known this would become a problem. The evidence of that is Section 15 of the Places to Grow Act, in which the Liberal government legislated itself blanket immunity, even dismissing any action taken or commenced before the act came into force. What is undemocratic here is the autocratic nature of the Places to Grow Act. Council should demand the repeal of the Yonge Eglinton Provincial Growth Plan. We have outgrown it. The planner, the solicitor, should be asking why it is Section 15 does not protect neighborhoods, just Liberal Party backsides. We should call their bluff and make Kathleen Wynne take us to court in the certain knowledge they will be revealed for the betrayal of Section 15 of the Places to Grow Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation and for your remarks. Are there any questions of our speaker? Okay. Thank you very much. Again, I'd like to call John Kaser. Kaser Mason Ball on behalf of 2239 Yonge Street. Following John's deputation, we will be hearing from Kelly Oskenberg. John, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council. My surname is Kaiser Mason Ball, and we're the solicitors for 2332356 Ontario Inc., which is the property owned by the Society of Energy Professionals at 2239 Yonge Street, just 2 doors to the south of 1 Eglinton Avenue East. Our client's property comprises of a 5-story building, which is fully tenanted, includes on 3 levels the offices of the Society, who are the principals of 2239. This society is a union made up of 8,400 members, the people who operate the nuclear plants here in Ontario. They also have an interest in the Bruce nuclear plant. Together with the owner of 2245 Yonge Street, the adjoining property, we call it the Gen Cell property, we've participated in the future redevelopment of our client's property at 2239 Yonge Street together with the Gencel property, which adjoins it to the north. Our client has been following the application for redevelopment being made by the owner of 1 Eglinton Avenue East. We've described it as the development property, and there is no need for me to describe it to you. You're well aware of it. For the record, we want to confirm that our clients have instructed us to join in and to adopt the reasoning and the arguments which are contained in the overland letter to you of October the 13th, 2017, on behalf of the owner of the adjoining property, the Gencel property. Our clients are greatly dissatisfied with the recommendations made in the final report prepared by your planning staff dated September 29th, 2017, recommending approval of this application. From our examination of the staff report, we've observed that the comments on the description of the built form, height, and massing fails to give effect to the tall building design guidelines, which were adopted by your council in May of 2013. As we pointed out in our earlier letter to you of August 18, 2016, the guidelines require a minimum of 12.5 meter tower setback from a side or rear lot line. Our client's own property is located within 6 meters of the southerly boundary of the development property and is materially affected by the absence of consideration being given to these guidelines. The current limited setback of the podium and tower from Cowbell Lane, the Cowbell Lane is the north-south laneway that connects Eglinton Avenue East and Sedan Avenue to the south, is a reduced setback of 5 meters, whereas in the first submission by the developer provided for a setback of 7 meters. The practical effect of the reduction in the setback is to require that the fundamental access to the development property will be affected from Cowbell Lane. Cowbell Lane, from our client's observations, is slanted downward from Eglinton Avenue East, which is the northerly boundary of the development property, and the incline, accompanied by the laneway width, which is very narrow, makes the entrance, the access for vehicles, and there will be many, bearing in mind that the building is to house approximately 108,000 square feet of new offices, both difficult to use and threatening to pedestrian safety and vehicular traffic on Cowbell Lane and approaching Eglinton Avenue East. The design of the building must be reoriented in a manner that is similar to that which has been used at the Minto property, which is to the south, fronting on Yonge Street. Tower Hill Developments at 2221 Yonge Street are adjoining property to the south, which will allow for the heavy vehicles that provide services to the office building to gain access onto the development property in a manner that will make it function with both safety and security. We've examined the transportation study prepared for the development property. We find that the data that has been provided by the transportation consultant is at least 5 years old and does not in any manner reflect the current and anticipated uses of Cowbell Lane. In addition, there is a further 58-story building being built at 2221 Yonge Street, which is a short distance to the south of the development property. Our client has joined with the Gencel property owner in a redevelopment proposal that has been initiated with your staff and is in the phase which will permit the design and the supporting transportation study to be shared with your staff in the coming weeks. It's our respectful submission that the staff report that's before you today should not be accepted at this time. It should be deferred in order to allow the proposals of our client, the society, and the Gencel property owner to be considered. References being made in the staff report with respect to a limiting distance agreement which exists between our client and its neighbor to the south.
Can I get your final thought, please?
Thank you. We would ask that an effort be made to give effect to the separation distances contained in the guidelines with deal with excessive shadowing, diminished sky views, heightened street level, loss of privacy, and limited interior.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for allowing me to have this time with you.
Are there any questions of the speaker? Okay, seeing none, thank you, sir. We will next be hearing from Kelly Oskenberg, followed by Arif Daramshi. Welcome. The clock is on your left-hand side, and you'll have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Kelly Oxenberg. I am here this morning on behalf of my client, Gencel Properties, Inc. Dr. Arif Daramshi of Gencel Properties will be making a deputation following my submissions. My client owns the property at 2245 Yonge Street. which is the property immediately south of 1 Eglinton Avenue East. The property is currently occupied by a 2-story commercial building. There's a Tim Hortons at grade, a hair salon above that, and a 1-bedroom rental unit at the rear of the building. The site was acquired by my client in 2004, always anticipating that if this block were to be redeveloped, it would be redeveloped comprehensively, given the mix of smaller and larger sites occupying the block. My client has continuously participated in the various planning processes in this part of the Midtown area, including the planning process related to the development of 2221 Yonge Street with a 58-story mixed-use building. An OMB settlement was reached in that case, and the tower, as approved, had appropriate regard for its surrounding context, including the smaller sites to the north. GenCell has been actively involved in the review process of this application and has also repeatedly voiced its concerns that were similar to those raised in the context of 2221 Yonge Street. However, unlike in that context, GenCell has largely been shut out of this process, even ignored. We submitted a letter last week to Community Council dated October 13th, setting out the concerns that are being raised in this deputation, and those concerns have been repeatedly shared with staff. My client is concerned with the placement of the proposed building relative to its site. The building, as originally proposed, was positioned 10.7 meters away from my client's site. However, the proposal was subsequently revised such that the tower now sits only 6.8 meters away. That separation distance is well below the 12.5 meter setback identified in the tall building design guidelines. Additionally, the proposed tower floor plate is between 805 to 833 square meters, far exceeding the maximum tower floor plate size of 750 square meters identified in the guidelines. Staff should be asking, why is it appropriate for this development to be excused from the application of the guidelines with respect to both tower separation and tower floor plate size? I would ask you to envision the juxtaposition of a 65-story tower immediately abutting a 2-story building. How can that be considered an appropriate relationship between the properties? Staff's position also seemingly disregards any future development potential for my client's site. Yes, my client's site is much smaller than the 1 Eglinton Avenue site. However, this is a highly urban site nonetheless. It's centrally located at a major intersection in a fast-growing neighborhood, and I would add that the permitted zoned height for the property is 61 meters. Approving this application without considering the development potential of adjacent smaller sites risks that this southwest quadrant will not be developed comprehensively, and that's simply not good planning. This is an important junction along the Yonge subway line, with significant resources being poured into the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, and the city should be getting this corner right. My client lastly has concerns regarding the relationship between the proposed development and Cowbell Lane. As Mr. Kaiser mentioned, Cowbell Lane is an important north-south mid-block connection, which provides access to a number of properties along Yonge Street and Eglinton Avenue East. The proposed setback is only positioned 5 meters away from the lane. The design of the proposed vehicular and pedestrian access does not take into account the intensity of the use proposed for the laneway and its existing physical constraints. This staff report recommends a Section 37 package that includes cash contributions towards improvements for Cowbell Lane, with these details to be left for the site plan stage. However, as you know, in the normal course, the site plan process is a private process, leaving little scope for the participation of the general public. I would like to leave you to consider that this application is perhaps a very pivotal decision for the city. This is not just a question of approving a tall building on a modestly sized corner site. There is a much larger issue at play here. When we are talking about comprehensive development—
Can I please have your final thought?
What do we do with smaller sites? How should we be dealing with less ideal or leftover sites, sites that are not just empty parking lots? how the city chooses to address this question through this application could potentially set a precedent for future tall buildings in the Midtown and the city generally.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speaker? No? Thank you. Our next speaker is Arif Dharamshi, followed by Sidonia Luakono. Welcome, sir. When you're ready, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, councillors, my name is Dr. Arif Dharamshi. I'm an emergency physician, having served the residents of Scarborough at the Centenary Hospital for the last 28 years. I, along with several other physician colleagues and family members, are the beneficial owners of 2245 Yonge Street, the Tim Hortons in the southeast corner of Yonge and Eglinton, through a corporation called Gensel Properties. We saw a once-in-a-lifetime city building opportunity with the $8 billion public investment in the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, particularly at the Yonge and Eglinton intersection, where the two largest mass public transit conduits intersect. In the southeast corner, we envisioned a comprehensive development befitting an international metropolis. A large public atrium with retail, ubiquitous access to the dual transit lines, underground internalization of all site servicing below two well-positioned towers. The Society of Engineers, our neighbours to the south at 2239 Yonge Street, shared in this aspiration, but we were disappointed with the actions of 2221 Yonge Street, that's the Tower Hill Corporation, and 1 Eglinton Davport, having rushed to develop their silos in the sky, packing in as many shoebox condos before the punch bowl spiked with emergency low interest rates gets taken away. I had several meetings with city planning staff to encourage dialogue, but received an indifferent response. To Davport, we suggested a joint venture and even suggested acquisition of our site to encourage a more comprehensive development. We remain ignored. This you will not see in the staff final report. TO Core, the city initiated OPA and ZBA in October 2016, the Tall Building Guidelines, the Yonge and Eglinton Secondary Plan, Midtown in Focus, Green Space and Built Form are all tools that you have given planning staff to encourage comprehensive and contextual development. We have actively engaged in this public discussion. Tall buildings intuitively come with greater civic responsibility. Councillors, the application before you is 6.8 meters away from us. It is intruding into our air rights, which are 61 meters in height as of right zoning. We have sadly forsaken a world-class development in the southeast corner. Now even the prospect of a 100,000 square foot medical office building on our combined sites is being sterilized. Before you is an application that will permanently mummify a 110-year-old, shabby, dilapidated farmhouse juxtaposed between two skyscrapers at a premier intersection. Setbacks, floor plate size, internalization of ingress and egress, and site servicing, the fundamentals of the Tall Building Guidelines have been abandoned in the final report. Councillors, you have given the tools to Councillors, you have the tools that you have created, endorsed, enacted, and given to the planning staff. Have they achieved their intended goal, I ask you? Councillors, as a landowner, I'm obviously asking the questions, but the questions that the members of council should be asking as well are, question 1, you should be asking staff, what is the future of the Gensel property and the Society of Engineers professional property at 2239 Yonge Street? Question 2, you should be asking, is this the appropriate finished product for the redevelopment of this important corner? Are you happy with it? Question number 3, you should be asking, how can these properties be developed in the future? If the answer to these questions is we don't know, or is the answer simply we don't care? Either way, in my mind, those are not appropriate answers, and I don't believe that members of council should be satisfied with those answers as well. Councillors, consider carefully the pivotal nature of the decision before you today. I urge you to defer this matter until further questions have been answered and city staff has been asked of all the appropriate questions, have been successfully answered and satisfactorily answered. Respectfully, Arif Dharamshi, MD.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for the speaker today? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Our next speaker is Sidonia Luakona. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of this committee. My name is Sidonia Loyacono. I'm here on behalf of the owners of the subject property, 1 Eglinton East Incorporated. On behalf of my clients, I'd like to start off by thanking staff for their cooperation and hard work on this file. Our client has also been working very closely with the various residents associations, and the success of that process is evidenced by the fact that there is a letter of support for the development on behalf of all 4 community groups. We have reviewed the staff report and agree with all of its contents. And while the staff report does a thorough job of responding to all of the concerns that you've heard this morning, from the Gensel property owners and from the owners at 2239 Yonge Street, I wanted to rise just to speak to one very specific issue, and that being the issues with respect to the setbacks and the appropriateness of those setbacks to the properties to the south. In our submission, and certainly supported by staff, the subject tower is appropriately set back from the properties to the south. Staff have confirmed and have looked at this development on a block level and have confirmed that the properties to the south, the Gensel property, even if consolidated with Mr. Kaiser's client's property, that it would be too small of a site to accommodate a tower. At best, the Gensel property, again, even in a circumstance where it would be consolidated, would accommodate a mid-rise building. And my client's development accounts for that, given the fact that, and the way that the podium has been designed. So it's not our development that is, to use the words raised by the last speaker, that is sterilizing this property. It really is a matter of the size of the Gensel property and the property to the south. And I'll just simply conclude by touching on the issue of Cowbell Lane and the design process there. We are going to be conveying a 1.5 meter pedestrian easement. There are significant Section 37 funds that will be dedicated to upgrades for the lane, and this will be a city-run design process, which our clients will be involved in through the site plan process. And subject to any questions, those are my submissions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speaker? Okay, seeing none, with our thanks. Our final speaker is Andy Gort. Andy, welcome. Are there any other members of the public who are interested in speaking to this item? Okay. Andy, when you're ready, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and councillors. I'm here on, my name is Andy Gort, and I'm the president of the South Eglinton Ratepayers and Residents Association. I'm here on behalf of a number of ratepayers associations that are joining this particular building. It's the Sherwood Park Ratepayers Association, the Eglinton Park Ratepayers Association, the Quantum Residents Association, and invited but not participating the Oriole Park Ratepayers Association. We formed a community group after the community council meeting and approached, with knowledge of the planning staff and the councillor, approached the developer DEF part to discuss this proposal with them and to look for improvements from a community point of view. We spent about 6 months discussing the development back and forth, and had a very open approach from the developer. Over the course of this period and then subsequently, we achieved 100%, more than 100% office space replacement, which they had not offered before. There's quite an attractive public space facing Yonge Street that was proposed in the end. A lot of attention to detail at the street level, an increase in larger size bedrooms for the property, a subway entrance designed to the Yonge Street, Yonge Eglinton TTC connection, and commitment of funds to much needed upgrade of Cowbell Lane and the Davisville Community Center, resulting in a resubmission of the proposal by the developer. So this all happened in 2015. Part of the process, we also approached Gensel Properties and introduced the various parties to each other. That's, I guess, from our perspective, the best that we could do, recognizing that perhaps this proposal could yet be better than it became. But in total, we are very pleased with all the accommodations and the changes that were made. One of the areas of our concern is Cowbell Lane, but more from as a public property, so that is not as related to the development as it is to the city. And we were assured that as part of the Midtown in Focus in 2014, it was included in the scope of work for the Midtown in Focus to look at as part of the transportation study, both in terms of pedestrian safety and the intersection between it and the adjacent streets. And in our letter, we look forward to continue to work with the city on the Midtown in Focus, and we have a keen interest in seeing Cowbell Lane being developed into a more appropriate kind of exit lane than what it is today. So all in all, I think a lot of people worked pretty hard on this project, and at this stage, we're pretty pleased with this project.
Thank you very much, Andy. Are there any questions of the speaker? Okay, with our thanks. Seeing no more speakers on the list and no other hands going up, then I'd like to bring this matter into our committee. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, Councillor Matlow.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to ask a previous deputant on behalf of Gensel Properties asked 2 or 3 questions. And I think in fairness, I'm going to pose them to you, and I'd like you to answer them. I'll just ask them all at the same time because I think they all they're framed around the same narrative. One, what is the future of the Gensel property in the Society of Energy Professionals property at 2239 Yonge? Number 2, is this the appropriate finished product for the redevelopment of this corner? And number 3, how can these properties be developed in the future? And I understand that you don't have a formal application in for that property, so.
Through the chair, I'll begin, and Mr. Teixeira can supplement. Just taking the questions together, I think I would just firstly comment that the deputations implied that staff have ignored the submissions over the last couple of years, and I think I would characterize it as more of an issue of a disagreement and not ignoring the issues. We've fully canvassed those issues over the last 4 years, actually, and considered the application before us and the adjacencies with the adjoining properties in the context of the in-force official plan and the plans that are emerging through the Yonge and Eglinton review. We don't consider the deputant's properties a tall building site. The site enjoys a permitted height of 61 meters, but a density of 5 times coverage. So that would have to be worked out if that owner decided to redevelop that property. And I would foresee an appropriate form of development being a podium style or a mid-rise kind of development that would sit between what are otherwise 2 very tall buildings, the building under construction at 2221 Yonge and the subject property. So the future vision for the corner, as imagined by both this subject development, our consideration of the deputant's property, and the other properties to the south, will, we believe, take place in that manner and consistent in a manner with the emerging Yonge and Eglinton review, which calls for setbacks on all sides, the setbacks on the public streets, a new public space at the corner of Yonge and Eglinton, and other attributes that we feel the application complies with. I don't know if Mr. Texera wants to supplement that in any way.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I think in response to the question about whether or not this development is appropriate for this corner, I think it is important to note that this particular development is replacing and actually exceeding the amount of office space on site. It's providing a true mixed-use building for the site. It's creating a POPS, a big public space on the corner of Yonge and Eglinton, widened sidewalks, and a connection to the TTC. So this site is actually providing a lot of the function that this important intersection deserves, and this important site deserves through redevelopment.
Okay, so bottom line is, you can assure us that you gave thoughtful due diligence to concerns and questions that were raised by Gensel Properties, but you're telling us that it wasn't a matter of ignoring them. You simply just respectfully disagreed with some of the concerns that they raised.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else with questions of staff? Okay, seeing none. Members to speak? Councillor Matlow?
Madam Chair.
Actually, sorry, Councillor. We need to bring back members of Toronto East Shore Community Council into committee room number 1. We need to reconstitute quorum. Members of Community Council, if you're in the building, we need you back in committee room number 1. We need you to reconstitute quorum.
Joe. Janet.
Go ahead, Councillor Matlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm moving the staff recommendations. It's interesting. I was at the Ontario Municipal. Well, I was at Queen's Park yesterday at a committee where they're reviewing proposed reforms to the Ontario Municipal Board, which many of us, along with our planning staff's advice, have been advocating for many years. And one of the questions that was asked of me by one of the members was, if we approve these reforms at Queen's Park and empower local municipal councils, will that lead to NIMBYs running the show, essentially? I'm paraphrasing, but that's what a concern was that was raised. Will local councillors be parochial, and will communities simply be NIMBY? And as we saw earlier from a site in Councillor Cressy's ward, and I believe at this site too, at the heart of Yonge and Eglinton, this is our answer. Our answer is that we will always challenge inappropriate development proposals. And far too long, certainly in Yonge and Eglinton and downtown and North York and elsewhere, we've seen far too many proposals that I think it's very understandable when communities say no. If they're only told that you're going to end up with 2 years of lane closures and dust and noise and construction, and we're not going to provide any substantive community benefits, and oh, by the way, the developer is going to get rich. Well, why would any reasonable person say yes to that? But we're doing things differently. We're fostering a culture of how to advocate and champion the community's interest, and build neighborhoods that are livable and provide a high quality of life. Yonge and Eglinton, for far too long, has had a dearth of social services, of hard infrastructure. You try to get onto the subway in the morning, afternoon peak hours, good luck. Good luck trying to find a lane in the local community center to swim in. Schools are over capacity. We highly suspect that the utilities are at their max. It's unacceptable, and we need to take the reins back. And that's why we implemented or initiated the Midtown Focus review to update and enforce empower our secondary plan, advocate for replacing the OMB with a genuine appeals body. And on the ground, we have a responsibility then to stand behind our words. If we say that we're going to be responsible, then we can't just be narrow, dishonest populists who say no to anything just to look like a champion. I believe that leadership, as I know all of my colleagues agree, is about making hard decisions but doing what's right. This is going to be the tallest tower at Yonge and Eglinton, and I'm proud to support it. And the reason I am is because we together as a community, along with every one of the ratepayers associations who are always said to be NIMBY, they are the ones that championed this. The community said yes because we achieved great public realm at Yonge and Eglinton to have a remarkable junction. We are actually looking at all the corners, including at the TTC lands, eventually building a remarkable public square. That's what great cities do. Toronto has been mediocre at that. That's what we're working on, creating great public realm at Yonge and Eglinton. Cowbell Lane, for far too long, has not been as functional or as beautiful as it should be. We are going to be investing in improving it. Midtown Community Center, the recreation center we're building at Davisville. We are now investing in that to make it a reality so that there's recreation opportunities for seniors and young moms and dads and everyone in between. We are building a new connection to the subway. It'd be great if we had a connection to the relief line too. Let's build that. We don't have enough money in the Section 37 to fund all of that, unfortunately. And despite the error that was made on 90 Eglinton West, we are now consistently turning that trend around, one after another, starting at 1 Eglinton, we're getting 100% office replacement. We can't just build a bedroom community in the sky. If you do that, you don't have a balanced community. You've got more people stuffing themselves on the subway, more people jamming themselves in their cars onto the roads. We want a walkable, livable community where people can work, live and play in the same neighborhood. That's what we want to see for Yonge and Eglinton. So ultimately, what we're doing here is approving something that if we had said no to, would have gone to the board and it would have been worse anyway. So what we decided to do is reframe the discussion about what we can make out of this situation. And I'm very proud of the community that went behind this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else to speak to this item?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll just make a couple of comments. We don't often hear Councillor Matlow speak so passionately in favor of development. And if that's in fact, it's kind of a measure of my meter on whether or not this is a good development. And to hear Councillor Matlow speak so passionately about it, I'm sure that everything was possibly done to ensure that this was the best possible outcome on the site. I wanted to speak because I was a little bit distressed by one of the deputants in some comments that it seemed to be requesting us to get involved with a real estate transaction in some way to encourage a developer to pull two sites together. That is not our job. That is not the position of this committee, and we shouldn't be asked to intervene to ensure that one developer, one site owner's the value of their site is uplifted by a decision about this committee. I don't believe that any of our decisions in favor of a 60-story tower or a 2-story building have anything to do with the value of the site. It all has to do with city building. It at least should not have to do with the value of anyone's site and should have everything to do with city building. We don't have the power to go ahead and tell people we do have the power to tell people to sell their land, but it's only really to sell it to us. If we need to do something significant to improve the functionality of our city. And we pay dearly for it. And we shouldn't be put in the position to try to compel one owner to buy out another so that they get an approval here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Layton. Any other members who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, the staff recommendations are before you, councillors. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? That carries. Thank you. I'm going to go back to item number TE 27.1. Okay, so a supplement, and this is the address is 102-118 Peter Street and 350 to 354 Adelaide Street West, zoning amendment application. The supplementary report is now before us within Community Council. Members of Community Council, it is now on your desk. Hopefully you are taking the time to read that. I want to bring this item back to the floor and also to call upon Max Allen, who I asked to step down, to see if he's now ready to speak to the matter. Max Allen, followed by Margaret Zeidler and Neil Smiley. Okay. I'm going to move on to item number, I don't think we're ready to deal with this now, so I apologize for that. So let's move on to TE 27.5. I'll try to bring back TE 27.1 after we deal with TE 27.5. 295 to 349 George Street, official plan and zoning amendment application, final report. Okay, welcome. We are going to be hearing from staff who are going to provide us with a presentation and overview of this particular application. It is a city-owned property, city-submitted application. I want to just let members here know that we're dealing with this report along with a second and accompanying report. Just so everyone is aware, we're dealing with this report and considering TE 27.22, which is the Heritage Preservation Report. These items are being dealt with concurrently at this time. Okay, so I'll begin your clock when you're ready. You've got 10 minutes between the two.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the committee for having us this morning. We are here as the applicants for an official plan and zoning amendment and alteration to the demolition of heritage properties for the George Street Revitalization Project. Now, we do have slides that, unfortunately, we have a technical issue here. They're not up on the screen.
Can we get audio-visual support staff to give us a hand? Okay, I'll hold your time until that happens. Okay.
Okay, the slides are up there, and just number 2 there, Reg.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So the site is situated immediately south of Allen Gardens. That part of George Street is currently mixed use, including Seton House Men's Shelter, a TCHC building, a co-op operated social housing building, a low-rise apartment building, provincial properties, and residential homes. The site includes the schoolhouse shelter that's currently owned by the city, but it is operated by Dixon Hall. And the properties recently acquired by the city, including vacant buildings that have been designated as heritage. The GSR project will respond to the needs of multiple communities. It will restore and integrate 6 heritage buildings in their 3 dimensions and will create a more welcoming, safer neighborhood for all, with a community hub providing programs and services to the residents and the neighborhood. In partnership with the community, the city will build a center of excellence with 21st century standards for the care of our most vulnerable residents, along with a multi-use, community-accessible building that will regenerate the neighborhood. With stakeholder participation, the GSR design built form has undergone numerous changes in order to balance the program needs, heritage requirements, and neighborhood interests. The revitalization plan must proceed on the basis of 3 important drivers. The first is that Seton House Men's Shelter needs to be replaced due to the building's aging condition and the challenges of providing appropriate shelter programs at that location.
The second driver is the provincially mandated redevelopment of long-term care homes and the need to keep beds in downtown Toronto, which is the catalyst for the staged redevelopment of 5 city homes totaling 1,232 long-term care beds. The new partnerships among city divisions will better meet the needs of homeless, vulnerable, and elderly individuals. The third driver is the changing face of downtown East neighborhood. Dilapidated heritage buildings, new condominiums, and gentrification pressures call for a proactive approach to respond to the needs of the populations we serve, promote inclusion for all residents, and address community safety concerns. The project will result in much-needed services for older residents in the downtown core. The facility will be a modern, well-designed, and an environmentally sensitive building that will benefit the neighborhood. as well as providing the opportunity for sharing services among city divisions. The project supports council's strategic plan and divisional strategic directions. North George Street will experience a revitalization. 2 major parks will be connected via a beautiful street with heritage assets restored in support of the Garden District Heritage Conservation District. The community hub and outdoor space will be open into the neighborhood. We are undertaking the largest city-initiated transition plan in order to decommission and demolish Seton House. Demolition will not proceed until the transition process is complete, which is targeted for December 2019. We have achieved a number of milestones to date, and we look forward to more. Stakeholders are numerous, and they have been involved throughout this process. We are currently working with our architectural consultants and Infrastructure Ontario to develop the project-specific output specifications based on the functional program and design work to date. The project continues to move forward and will be ready for procurement in the spring of 2018. As reported to Council in November 2015, project cost estimates are in the range of $500 million, with the bulk of the funding coming from the city. If Council approves project funding in February 2018, substantial completion is anticipated by 2023. Should the 2 reports before you today receive Council approval, we will have achieved one more very important milestone in the timely delivery of this transformative project.
And there's one other brief presentation as well.
Yes?
Madam Chair, councillors, I'm one of the architects involved in this project, and my name is Steve Hilditch. I'm here to give you a very brief overview of the architectural nature of the proposal. I'm going to start with the site plan and floor plans, and I'm going to focus first on the first floor and second floor. The building will provide a visually open and inviting face to George Street, particularly on the first floor level, where multiple building entrances will invite the full cross-section of the neighborhood to enter and benefit from the community hub, as well as supporting the special needs of the long-term care home and affordable housing residents and shelter and transitional living clients and their friends and families. The community hub space extends to the second floor, and so these 2 floors are really the most public face of the proposed development. As we get to the 3rd to 8th floors, the building is essentially providing specific program needs for the long-term care residents and the emergency shelter and transitional living clients. We have one additional floor on top of that. The 9th floor is essentially an outdoor smoking area, but is otherwise a series of mechanical, electrical spaces and an extensive green roof. We also have 2 levels of underground parking located below the north portion of the site, avoiding the heritage properties. In terms of height and massing, we've proposed a development that maintains the rhythm of the existing street with multiple entrances, a variety of compatible materials, and a scale that relates to the restored heritage buildings, which will be a gem of this redevelopment. Along the east lane, the building steps back in a series of steps to break down the overall massing. The base of the building will be constructed of darker materials, while the upper levels will be generally lighter in color to provide greater light reflectance to the adjacent neighbors. At left, you'll see 2 building cross-sections, both looking north. The lower section shows the proposed building will be very similar in height to the existing tower on Pembroke Street, which is an anomaly. Most of the rest of Pembroke is traditional scaled single-family housing. On the right, a view from the front yard of Pembroke Street shows that the visibility of the proposed development from the east side of Pembroke will be very, very minor. In the context of the as-of-right development massing seen in orange in the upper right corner of the image, the GSR redevelopment provides a stepping down from the proposed high-rise massing of towers along Jarvis Street and the west side of George Street to the generally lower traditional scale of homes within the Garden District. In the lower right image, the red line shows that the as-of-right towers on the west side of George will match the shadow impact of the GSR development on the rear yards of the houses on the west side of Pembroke. The blue line shows that the towers are visible above the GSR development when seen from the east side of Pembroke. In essence, we see this as a very compatible development within the context of the step down from high-rise massing to the lower scale of the Garden District. With the restoration of the heritage buildings and their careful integration within the development, and through extensive discussions with city staff around how best to enhance the public realm and the neighborhood, we believe the revitalization of North George Street will be a major catalyst for energizing this neighborhood while welcoming all of its constituents. The project offers a solid example of major city divisions working together to create a significant community and cultural asset, and we look forward to your support. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions of the speaker, of our staff? No? Okay. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to this item? There are no members of the public who are here to speak to the George Street revitalization? Okay. Thank you very much. I won't take up too much time to ask questions of staff, but I just want to take a moment to thank staff and also to move the recommendations in the report. I'm moving the recommendations contained in the report number 5, which is the rezoning application, but also the heritage recommendations in the report item number 22. Sorry. Yep, that's okay. So thank you to the staff for always keeping us on track. I do have actually not just one motion. I think I've got 2 motions. Yeah, 2 for 22. Okay, so we're going to deal with this concurrently as I stated before. We're on report number 5. We're going to be dealing with report number 22 in a short order. But I also want to just sort of place my motion on the screen at the moment. And the motion is really to ask staff to work in consultation with the community as well as significant stakeholders to develop a public art plan. Number 1, to recognize the importance of the Indigenous people and especially the population that currently resides in the downtown east neighborhood, but also to work with stakeholders on developing an appropriate strategy for the British Home School, the British Home Children movement with respect to creating an interpretive plan and public art project. I think it's, sorry, I'm just going to start my time. I didn't speak for 11 minutes. I think it's very important for us to, number 1, acknowledge how significant this particular redevelopment project is, not just in the context of one local downtown neighborhood, but in the context of a significant citywide important project. It's no mistake, I believe, that staff probably showed you iconic buildings that are well documented and well recorded across the city as one way of contextualizing where this project sits in the context of citywide city building. And I want to thank staff for all their exceptional and hard work. The community that is comprised and constituted around the Garden District is one that, of course, bears the social responsibility of service delivery. We have 1,300 shelter beds in Ward 27. It's oftentimes it's commented that Ward 27 really is the most socially and economically diverse ward in the city. Not only do we represent the poorest postal code in the city, we have the wealthiest postal code on the north side of our community. However, we're able to try to do the best that we can to strike the balance. This particular community has been waiting for a very long time to see the revitalization of this particular facility. And what you saw today, members, is not just an effort that began a year ago or 2 years ago, but it was probably a conversation that began shortly after I took office in 2010, as I walked north and south along George Street, trying to understand what can we do with the derelict and abandoned heritage properties, which to me seemed like incredible cultural values and assets that had been long time ignored and forgotten. What do we do to improve a facility that was woefully outdated, did not provide any amenities and modern features to provide a level of care and quality of life for the vulnerable men who are actually mostly seniors living in the shelters? It was no longer just de facto emergency shelter. It had become housing. And also to understand what was going to be the impact for the local community, because not only do we carry the lion's share of social responsibility for the city, we also are carrying the social decay and sometimes social disorder that comes with a lack of coordinated, significant investments. There was a strategic move to acquire the properties on George Street that were with heritage value. That took vision from the real estate facility staff. It took vision from city manager and even vision from the previous council and all the staff who said, we're going to do right by this particular street and by the site by acquiring properties that nobody wanted, because this was going to be very difficult and very expensive proposition to turn over and to renew. And then we're going to hold them until we actually put together a strategy that was going to be holistic, number one, and also inclusive. We're also going to engage the population that's currently residing in Seton House by doing direct consultation with the men in the facility to make sure that they know what's going on and that there is as much information provided to them as possible to work through the programming and the functionality. And we're going to do this slowly, incrementally, with everybody lockstep in process. So I just wanted to take a moment to sort of highlight the importance of this particular project. There are no shortcuts. It is, I'm sure that most will recognize that this is going to be a very difficult project to execute. We're talking about $500 million of investments, largely coming from the city, to repurpose heritage properties and also to build a modern state-of-the-art facility that will accomplish a whole range of needs. And our community is not saying no. As you can tell, nobody came out to depute against this. They've worked it through. They've already been able to sort of provide their feedback, and they're going to be part of the success of the program moving forward. There's been a lot of talk about money and about how do we ensure that people who are currently living in the shelter are going to transition out. I think it's important to note that in the staff presentation, they remarked that no one is going to be moving until everybody's found a place. And that place is not just any home or any roof, it's got to be a place with the adequate supports. So we know that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and they are prepared to do that. And the local community, including those who are street involved, who are sleeping rough, who are living in the shelters, who are also homeowners and tenants, everyone is working together. So this is actually a very significant and good news story, and I just want to highlight it's taken us 6 years to get to this stage. Obviously, we've got to fight pretty hard to make sure that the budget in the 2018 process is going to reflect the next incremental step of investments needed to move this project forward, and also just to recognize that there's probably not too many neighborhoods out of the 140 neighborhoods in the city of Toronto that can do what we are going to be doing on George Street. So I want to thank staff for their hard work, because I know that this has not just been another project, but rather a project of labor and love here. Thank you. Councillor Cressy, Councillor Davis.
Just very briefly, Councillor Wong-Tam thanked many, and I in turn want to thank her for not only the vision, as she mentioned, this has gone back 6 years, but the process and a real commitment to working with both those who are living and sleeping rough on the streets and those who are housed to design this in a way that meets their needs but also this unyielding commitment to equity that Councillor Wong-Tam shows always. And I just want to thank her in addition to staff and the residents in the neighborhood for all their work.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I too was going to thank Councillor Wong-Tam, but also just comment briefly, if I could, on why this project is so unique. It does go back a long way, and I recall Cal Ray initially tangling with both the impact of Seton House on the surrounding neighborhood, but also with the kinds of services and the nature of the clientele of Seton House and how to best serve them. And I think what we have here with a combination of both supportive housing, long-term care, and shelter beds, we are providing for the array and the complete range of needs for homeless and the complex needs of older men. If you've ever visited Seton House and visited the annex, many of us heard during the last administration, all these comments about what was going on in Seton House because it's a wet program. In the annex in particular, if you've ever been there, you understand that this is not just a shelter. It is a place that is almost acting like a hospice or palliative care. These are very men at the ends of their lives. And the way that they are being housed, and they are being housed in a shelter, it is not acceptable. And so I'm very pleased that the partnership between long-term care and shelters happened, because we are now serving a client base that we have identified for many years as in great need. So it's pretty amazing that it's gotten this far, and I want to credit Councillor Wong-Tam for continuing to press forward with this. It looks like it will be a beautiful building, and hopefully will create that integration into the neighborhood that you are, I know, are hoping to achieve with it. So yeah, we've all got to stand up when this comes to budget in 2018 and say this is as important as all the other things that are in the capital budget. It is precedent setting, and I think we have to proceed to make sure that this happens, all of us, for the 2018 budget. So thank you to our staff. It is a pretty amazing project that is going to serve a group of people in our city who have not been served appropriately with supportive housing and the kind of integrated approach that this will deliver.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bailão.
Madam Chair, through you, I want to thank staff and thank you and the local community that has been supportive of all the conversations that have been going on about this. But I think it is important to note that this is a big step away from warehousing people to housing people. That's how I see it. When you have a shelter with 600 people, like we had at Seton House, it's almost like a warehouse. And what has been done in the last few years, it's understanding the needs of people, of those people. It was not about the shell that we had, but it's understanding what services we need to provide those people, and I think that's what's happening here. The city is moving from that into a model that we understand that in order to properly house people, and you start in many cases with a shelter bed, but the continuum is really important to have the supportive housing to follow from them, and the mechanisms to make that individual succeed. And I think that this is the key project in our city that is an example of the way that we're moving towards caring about the services and the people, and making sure that we have the mechanisms for people to succeed. And for that, we need to renew our shelters system and the way we see shelters. And Councillor Fletcher and I had the opportunity to do some work on that, on how to re-envision shelters with the communities, and how to bring shelters into our communities. But most importantly, understand that we need a big investment in the supportive housing, in the housing, because that's ultimately where we want to get people. So thank to our communities and staff, and thank you to you, Madam Speaker, for shepherding this process all these years.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else to speak? Okay, so there's a motion before us to amend the report. All those in favor? Okay, and then item as amended, if I can ask for a recorded vote.
So we're just doing 5 right now.
Yeah, we're doing number 5 at the moment. Councillor Davis, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Fragedakis, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor Matlow, Councillor McMahon, and Councillor Bailao. Thank you. The accompanying report is item number 22, alterations and demolitions of heritage properties, 349 George Street, 309 and 311 George Street, 305 George Street, 301 George Street, also known as 301A George Street, 303 George Street, 297 George Street, and 295 George Street. There is a technical amendment I would like to move from the staff, and also to move that we adopt the recommendations from the Preservation Board. This technical amendment is to amend that, to sort of amend the board recommendations. Correct? Okay. And just to highlight once again, and I won't spend too much time, oftentimes developers will submit applications that may affect heritage properties, and their request to us is to tear down the heritage property. And to just build something new, shiny, and gleaming. I can say with a lot of confidence is that the restoration readaptation program that comes with the George Street Seton House revitalization demonstrates to every single developer and applicant and aspirant who wants to tear down a heritage building to make way for new development. If we can do it on George Street, and if you have ever walked down George Street and seen the state of those heritage properties, I can't even recall the number of fires we've had. Those buildings have been largely emptied for about a decade. If we can do that and put in the investment to make sure that we incorporate those buildings, then certainly there isn't a single excuse I can think of for why we would tear down any significant cultural heritage assets. So this report in some ways demonstrates the fact that the city is demonstrating its own thought leadership when it comes to heritage and cultural preservation. All those in favor of the staff technical amendments, thank you. And then the report as amended. And again, I will call for a recorded vote. Councillor Davis, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Fragedakis, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor Matlow, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Bailao. Thank you very much. We're moving back to item number 1, and I'm going to ask for Max Allen. Are you now here? Okay, Max, great to see you again. Thanks for waiting. Just going to read the title of the report. You're going to go for 5 minutes? Okay. Actually, Max, before you begin, I think, Max, if you just hang on, we're going to introduce some new items and new business. So sadly for everybody else, we're going to make the agenda a little bit longer. I'd like to move that we introduce item TE 27.93 and TE 27.94. We'll be officially adding those items to the agenda. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Max, I'm going to start your time when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. I'm the Vice President for Planning and Development here on behalf of the Grange Community Association. We're north of the site. We run from Spadina to University and from Queen to College. There is almost an agreement about a terrific public space in the middle of the block under consideration. There is a problem in the supplementary, the new report that we got about a half an hour ago, and that is parks are required to have a street address, and the Parks Division wants, when there is a city park, for it to go down, as Sue Dexter said earlier, to the center of the earth. The proposal is for there to be parking under this area in the middle of the block, but it doesn't have to be called a park. It could be a public square, which is what it ought to be, and that gets rid of the problem that is talked about on page 8 of the new report that we got a few minutes ago. The time pressure on this proposal is awful. It's nerve-wracking, and it probably is also useful, because in a situation like this, where the city stands to gain a $10 million park for nothing, instead of the possibility of a 50-story building, that possibility needs to be taken very seriously, and it is being taken seriously by everybody involved in this. What the Grange Community Association has suggested in the letter that we have before you, that includes a stunning illustration, a picture of what this could be. What we've suggested in our letter, I think, should be just set aside. It involves reducing parking and things like that. The important thing is to keep the discussion going among the people who are directly involved in this. And I will support however the councillor thinks, having just gotten this new report, however the councillor thinks we should proceed here. There is a suggestion for an October 30th meeting among the major parties, and I think that's a good idea. But I'll leave it up to Councillor Cressy to figure out the mechanism of this. We were all ready to go until we discovered 45 minutes ago that there was a second report from planning, which I want to emphasize we hadn't seen before, and neither had you. Go ahead, good luck. You got a $10 million possibility here. That's all.
Thank you very much, Max. Any questions of the speaker? No? Our next debutant would be Margie Zeidler, followed by Neil Smiley. Is there anyone else here who's interested in speaking to item number 1? It's address 102. Okay, Cynthia McDougall. Okay. It's item number 102 to 111 Peter Street and 305 to 354 Adlai Street West zoning amendment application final report. I did not read the title in my earlier introduction. I want to do that, put it in the record. Margie, welcome.
Thank you. Do you have the ability to turn this on?
Yes. Is there anything you want to put on there? If you want to put it on facing yourself, that's perfect.
Great. Okay,
and the staff will put that into focus for us.
Okay, I'm going to try and tell you a 5-year story in 5 minutes. I didn't know I would have an opportunity to depute today because I thought this was being deferred until rather recently. 5 years ago, all the owners on our block, which we call the SPAR block, Spadina, Peter, Adelaide, Richmond, which is this block here, came together and talked about the future of the block because we could see there were development opportunities on the east side of the block, mostly empty lots. We, strangely enough, we had the counselor at the meeting, not the previous counselor, and it turned out that none of the owners wanted to develop their lands, none of the heritage building owners. They liked the buildings the way they were. They wanted to continue. This was fabulous news. We represented 60% of the owners on the block. So we fiddled around for a while, and we came up with a partie of a plan that we could actually take the parking lot that is at the back of our building, it's 10,000 square feet, and turn it into a park. And that we would use the developments, thank you, we would use the, whatever agreements were able to be made by the developments on the east side to do one thing, which was to replace our parking and servicing needs. That is all we needed in order to give up this piece of land for public good. We went to the city. They thought it was a fabulous idea. We said, this is really urgent. This was 3 years ago. We went to the planning department. This is really urgent. You need to get behind the 8 ball on this one. Here you have an opportunity. Nobody's even talking to you about developing these lands. You could make a secondary plan. You could create something wonderful here. Nothing happened. There was a public meeting that was held by the council, pre-application meeting. This and the other property were both presented. This property presented our parking lot as being a piazza, saying that this was a public good that they could bring to the development. I was stunned. I didn't respond because I was so surprised that someone was using our land. They later told us that the city had told them that this was what was going to happen. So I connected with the city and asked them, what is happening? How are you going to make this happen? And they just said, it's our policy, it's our policy, it's our policy. And I said, but it's our land, so how are we going to work that out? Anyway, we wrote a letter, the property owners, 2 years ago to Councillor Cressy. We copied the planning department. We said that we had certain things we wanted to see happen. We wanted to see a master plan for the block. This was a fantastic opportunity. We wanted to see that any towers that were built on the block fell within the tall tower guidelines. And we wanted to make the servicing and the parking all integrated within this very pressurized block in the downtown core. We then proceeded on a series of planning meetings, all the stakeholders, the lawyers, the owners, the architects, everybody, and we talked about how this could happen. I can honestly say I don't think we really got anywhere. There have been no reports out of any of those meetings to say how this was going to happen, only that they wanted it to happen. Anyway, in time, the developers both submitted proposals. So now we'd lost the opportunity to do a comprehensive block plan. And the whole while, we were sort of being treated like a pariah that was trying to offer some swampland to the city. And, you know, this was really didn't seem to be of much interest other than they told us they were interested in it. So several months ago, I had given up on this opportunity. Because there was no how or why that this was going to happen. Anyway, late in July, Linda McDonald called another of these meetings. I had refused to go to the meetings anymore because nothing was being accomplished, but she told me that it had all been resolved, that Greywood, who were submitting this proposal, had figured out a way to make this park happen. So of course I went to the meeting. Well, Greywood opportunity was that they were going to create a right-of-way over their property and a knockout panel in case we ever wanted to build any parking under our park. It's not our park. It was meant to be a public space. And I said very clearly at that meeting that we cannot provide the park unless we get our parking back and our ability to load and ship and receive in the building. So I contacted Linda many times after that, no response. I said, you know, you haven't met any of the tall tower guidelines. There's been no master plan, and now there's no way to get this park to happen. So a couple days before Community Council, I got a note from the councillor saying that there had been an approval report written, and none of the owners on the block had been notified about this. None of us at 401 had been notified. I've checked with all of them, and apparently I'm told this was a mistake, that somehow somebody was supposed to have sent this out and mistakenly it didn't go out. So we were all hit broadside. None of the owners were even able to be here last week. That's why it was deferred. So another meeting has been held. We've just been handed a report, 43-page report in the last half hour that I don't have time to read. while I was trying to write the speech I didn't think I'd have to be giving. This is what we had envisioned. It doesn't really...
Sorry, Margie, I'm going to have to ask you for your final thought. You're out of time.
Yeah, just terrifically disappointing, that's all. A missed opportunity. And this development does not fit into any of the city's tall tower guidelines or any of its secondary plan policy directions, and it doesn't explain to us why. And in this report, by the way, our right-of-way has been taken out, and it seems to claim that it's because of us. I haven't had time to read it enough, but I'd like to thank the Powering Opportunity for all their help in this matter.
Thank you very much. Don't leave yet. We have some questions for you. Councillor Cressy?
Thank you, Margie, and thank you for condensing 5 years into 5 minutes. So the opportunity for a potential mid-block public space, from your vantage point, that opportunity still remains.
Stupidly, yes, because you have said that you would try to continue to make it happen. If not, it would have been withdrawn, because I really am convinced that neither the planning department nor the developer really want to see this happen. It's too much trouble for them.
Okay. But for land that you control, you're still prepared to be part of that to try to make it happen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else with questions for the speaker? Okay. Margie, I have a question. I just want to clarify, because I don't think it's fully clear to me. The site that you're speaking about in question is not necessarily owned by you.
It is owned by us.
It is owned by you.
Yes.
And is it solely
And it's a
owned by you?
perfect site for a condominium, as Max Allen mentioned. It's clear, free. We don't have to touch the heritage building and able to make the condominium tower on it. We have had proposals to do that.
But that's not what you'd like to do with the site. You wanted to turn it into...
Strange you love, and our lawyer doesn't understand this at all. I would like to see it be a public space.
And is it encumbered?
No. Is in no way encumbered.
And do you need to combine it with any other site?
No.
No.
No. It's entirely ours. It can entirely be done by us. But we have an issue, which is that we have, 45 parking spaces back there. We can't afford to lose the revenue from those spaces, and we also have, it's our only way to service the building, and we can't lose that either. So some solution needs to be worked out to make the park happen.
And so does that include digging below?
No, it's a possibility. That was one of the possibilities, but this is, again, no work has been done to try and figure out what the best option is, whether we should be making the parking lot below and going in under the developer's land, or whether it would be much cheaper, and I believe it would be, to find the parking somewhere else, either in one of these two developments.
So in a nutshell, if you were able to find a replacement for the 45 parking spaces, you'd be happy to hand over?
And the servicing of our property, we need loading and shipping facilities that are currently on our property. I mean, no matter what we do, this is more difficult for us, because I know we're going to have to give up some stuff in order to make this happen, but we really believe in the vision. So to be treated as though we're trying to, nobody gives this kind of land to the city and not in return for, big development. I just cannot understand how this has happened in this way over the last 5 years. It's very disappointing, and I'd like to be interesting to know how many other opportunities like this have been lost.
Okay. Margie, thank you very much. That was very helpful in clarifying the remarks. Our next speaker is Neil Smiley, followed by Cynthia McDougall. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Okay. When you have a moment?
Just 1 minute, please.
Yeah, you've got 5 minutes, and the clock is on your left.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, my name's Neil Smiley, and it's like coming to the speaking opportunity and losing your wind because of the staff report that's just arrived. So I'm going to wing it, and I apologize in advance, but if you could perhaps give me your indulgence, I'll let you know what our issue is. I act for the Templar Hotel that's situated on the south side of the development property. The Templar Hotel is a boutique property, very well known to the entertainment users of that hotel. It's very active during TIFF all year round. A wonderful looking facility. And I'll just take the moment just to put frontal view. This would be looking northward from Adelaide Street to the north. The development site's going to, and you'll see in a moment, wrap around from left and behind. Templar's property, if you look at it from the corner, and I guess pictures are worth 1,000 words, and I apologize, it was a gray day, but the Templar Hotel property is an 8-story building. It has floor-to-ceilings windows, on each floor, on the front side, and replicated to the rear of the hotel, again on its full 3rd through 7th, 8th story, with floor-to-ceiling windows. The reason why the Templar is here, and we appreciate the opportunity to have engaged with city staff and the councillor's office, is to show you a before and after. Pictures, as I said, is 1,000 words, and the after of the photograph is there before you. So the Templar Hotel in the foreground with the proposed redesign of the building is essentially shoehorning the building from its western and northern exposures. What's Templar's issues? It changes the reality of what that hotel serves in the entertainment district as it's functioning to the entertainment clientele. As you can see, you've got this structure rising above the roof of the hotel property, 5.5 meters away, no further than myself, maybe to Councillor McMahon. And to the rear, you have a tower rising 10 meters away from the back fascia of the hotel property. And if I could show you that back fascia right now, those are the windows from the back. So we're looking in a westerly direction, but floor-to-ceiling windows. Current condition is there's an ugly old building that sits pretty much behind the property, and it's there to your right, and no one's hiding that fact. But what we're looking at is the city's official plan, the statement for the King Spadina secondary plan, that new buildings will be sited for adequate light, view, privacy, compatibility with the built form context. And secondly, new buildings will achieve a compatible relationship with their built form context through consideration of such matters as height, massing, scale, setbacks, stepbacks, roof line, architectural character, and whatnot. The revised application has some wonderful merits to it. I think the councillor and planning staff have been very successful in preserving the heritage buildings immediately to the west. But these two provisions in the city's secondary plan, King Spadina, are not, in my respectful submission to you, being adhered vis-a-vis the transition of this superstructure to the hotel that's going to be below and wrapped around by it. Just to give you an inkling of what's going to be lost there and what we're working on presently with staff and the applicant are the following. That's a view from the 6th or 7th story hotel suite looking northward. That's looking exactly at a wall that will be, give or take, 10 to 12 meters away. Presently, there's a building in the foreground, in the background. This photo is from a similar unit, but poses another problem, which is on the 7th floor, you'll see an outdoor patio. That outdoor patio is looking immediately to the north, and the building will be 10 meters to north, but to its left, to the west, the tower wraps around, as I showed you in that second photograph, 5.5 meters away. Not to say that you'd like to see what the bathroom layout looks like, but it's open, wide open, floor to ceiling, windows looking northward. What we're hoping to do, Madam Chair and members of council, is utilize this time with the applicant and planning staff to figure out if there's mitigation measures that can be incorporated into this plan. The staff report that you've got before you today, thankfully, is the first mention of the Templar Hotel. There's a page about the Templar Hotel, which wasn't in the first 60 or 50 pages of both the planning application, the applicant's planning staff report and staff reports, city's original staff report. We're quite thankful that someone's looking at it now. We would very much like to be a part of the site plan approval process. Madam Chair and councillors, the unique things that have to be done for the benefit of the Templar will flush themselves out, we believe, during the site plan process. So if the councillor is choosing to push forward recommendations today, we would ask if we could be participants at that table. Those are my submissions, and I do again want to thank councillor and planning staff, as well as the applicant in recent days trying to figure this out with us.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the deputant? Okay, next up to speak, Cynthia McDougall. Thank you very much.
So warm?
You have
Good morning.
Good morning. You have 5 minutes.
I'm here on behalf of Greywood.
Before you is a final report in support of the development, including a supplementary report, and it reflects discussions that have been ongoing with the neighbors. I want to say two things. Greywood has behaved honorably and responsibly and responsive to its neighbors. And with respect to the hotel, I'm not going to go into detail with respect to the relationships, but just recognize it's a hotel, and in terms of dealing with light view and privacy, it's not a residential use, and there's no right to a view. And for whatever reasons, when the hotel built itself, when the owner of the hotel built the property, built it effectively lot line to lot line with no setbacks. So its view was it's going to export on its neighbors any particular setbacks. So in fact, the setbacks that are being offered, which are improved setbacks to the existing condition, in fact, are on Greywood's property. With respect to the park and the area, I just want to give a little explanation of the site. Let me see if I can do it this way. So Greywood owns the property that is in white on the corner, and 401 Richmond is right there in purple. In the area that is gray is essentially the parking area of Margie's site. My client has been in discussions with respect to providing access to the area that Margie would like to either be a park or a POP, and in fact, we're open to that kind of access through our property subject to reasonable terms and conditions, and that discussion's been ongoing. I think there's a difficulty because there's a desire from the adjacent landowner to provide a park or an open space, but with respect to Greywood, it is in fact providing a POP on its property, providing the appropriate parkland contribution. We've been asked to do it in cash and lieu, and behaving appropriately with respect to the Section 37 contribution. So we're happy to sit down and have further discussions, but there clearly is a need for an understanding of roles and responsibilities, and I just want folks to understand that Greywood is operating appropriately in terms of the context of its application and open if there's a possible resolution.
Great, thanks very much. Any questions? Councillor Cressy.
So, and utilizing, Cynthia, thank you for being here and for those comments. So utilizing the map you have, under the current proposal, there is a POPs proposed that does connect to the potential site of a park or a public or a POPs.
Yes.
401 Richmond, could you identify where that is so people understand?
It's essentially through here from the street, so that there's a walkway that would connect this POP or park, and we have some land in this area.
Okay, so that is part of the proposal. There is a POPs that's been identified to connect from the street to the adjacent property where there may be a public square. You mentioned that there's a willingness to look at utilizing the right-of-way for loading and parking within the Greywood site for access to a potential parking structure next door at the 401 parking site. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, one final, and you are prepared, Greywood, your applicant is prepared to continue conversations towards finding a resolution towards a potential new expanded public space, POPs or a park, is that correct?
Yes, on the understanding that you're going to be moving the report to the November council, because our concern is timing with respect to moving forward and a timely resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, if you could leave that up there. I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but I had a question. So just on where you've shown from the ink the access from Adelaide to the center of this series of buildings in the block, that walkway would be the POP, or the POP is at the back?
No, well,
or is the whole thing a POP?
It's both. We would be providing a POP, which is a walkway to the, which is right now Margie's parking lot.
Right.
And lands abutting it, so that if there was a POP on Margie's lands, it would abut our POP, and we would be providing effectively access through our lands to that future POP on Margie's lands.
Which in itself, I guess, would be a POP, because...
Yes, it's either a POP or a park, depending on how the city wants to treat it.
Thanks very much. Are there any other speakers on this item? Okay, Councillor, any questions of staff? Councillor Cressy?
Thank you. A few questions, and I want to zero into this discussion of this opportunity within the mid-block there of a park or a public space. So for city planning, what is city planning's vision, and is there a formal vision for the mid-block space within the SPAR block?
You, Madam Chair, the work that planning has been doing over the last several years in King Spadina, we have a public realm plan which was adopted by City Council, which shows the potential POPs in the center of this block. So that is a document we're working with. The recently adopted HCD at the last council meeting identifies the heritage buildings on the block and therefore provides protection to the heritage on the remainder of the block. We also are just completing our work on the update of the secondary plan for King Spadina. And in the secondary plan, there will be language which specifically speaks to protecting the opportunity for the POPs in the center of this block. So there are a number of documents which have been approved or coming forward to council, which will do that. We did look at the POPs as part of our review of this application. And as Ms. McDougall has pointed out, the Greywood application actually expands that central space so that we have a larger property and we have better pedestrian access to it. And certainly there's nothing on the Greywood property which would prevent us from proceeding with a central open space on this block.
So the vision there, understanding from the secondary plan that's emerging, is for a public space within there. And with the HCD, there's a level of protection there for it. You've mentioned a POPs. The possibility of a park has also been raised. Has Parks weighed in yet? And I will have a motion to this effect. I still don't see why this can't be a park.
We have been consulting with Parks, and they have been involved in this process since the beginning. They have identified that the POPs in the center of the block, in terms of having access onto a public street, and also being unencumbered, it creates challenges for them in terms of parks. And so their response to planning has been that they wouldn't support the central space being designated as parkland, but they certainly support us pursuing it as a public space.
Okay, now the process of how we get from here to an eventual public space within the block, as outlined in the initial report, I understand the proposal was to have an easement which would be provided by Greywood within their parking facility, as well as some upfront money for design. In the supplementary report, I noticed that easement is no longer included. Why is that?
What we have done is since the September Community Council meeting when the item was deferred, we've had meetings both with the Templar, representatives of the Templar Hotel, and there was a meeting last week with Greywood and Margie Zeidler's team and city planning staff. And park staff was also there. And what we've looked at is what the different opportunities were. At the meeting last week, it wasn't clear that Margie Zeidler and the 401 Richmond team were comfortable with the way that we had approached the easements and how they would actually function in terms of how the parking would get constructed underground, who would pay to build that parking. And the other matter that's still outstanding is because the loading for 401 Richmond, which is a heritage building, is off of that potential POP space, there was some question as to how you would then relocate the loading and how make that work, and whether those easements were actually the best way to address that. So without having a consensus on the easements, we've recommended taking them out. We don't believe that stops us from continuing the conversation about the easements, and certainly, as Ms. McDougall has pointed out, Greywood continues to be willing to talk to us about how we achieve that.
Okay, and then just picking up on your last comment there, Linda, if there is a recommendation to, between now and council, continue that work to see if the resolution can be met to seize this opportunity for a public space, is that something that city planning is able to, time-wise, to participate in and be part of?
Planning is prepared to do that. In fact, we have set up a meeting. It's scheduled for October 30th, and that meeting will be with the landowners, city planning staff, transportation staff to help us with the issue of the loading and the maneuvering of how you deal with that, and park staff will be at that meeting on the 30th.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Anyone to speak? Councillor Cressy.
Thank you, and I'll start by moving a motion, if it can be put on the screen. The motion specifically is to move forward, though, without recommendations, and as well 2 specific pieces of work to take place. One is as it relates to convening with the impacted parties, the work towards addressing the need to create this public space, and the second is for Parks, Forestry, and Recreation to both review, and I recognize this was mentioned in the supplementary report, but I would like them to review this further and to report directly, because I'm not yet fully convinced that this cannot be a park. Let me say a few comments, and in terms of the way forward here. This is in King Spadina. It gets complicated in King Spadina, as you have seen with the conversations. The site that we're looking at is a tall building site. It can meet its standards within this site. And I just want to say off the top that the applicant, Greywood, as a development partner, has been working really hard with us. And I want to recognize that and thank them. There have been many changes over time. At one point, there were 2 towers here, not 1. It was much higher, but this willingness to work hard to unlock the possibility for a significant public space in the interior in an area of the city that is deficient, severely deficient in public space and green space, they have demonstrated a real willingness to work with us on that through a POPs connection to the space, through a POPs that would enlarge the space, and the willingness to look at easements or other conversations related to parking access and loading. And so I do want to recognize and thank them as a partner for their tremendous hard work on this. Now, the reason and it is part A of my motion, I'm not ready to approve this, is because this site and this application cannot be seen on its own. It does need to be seen as a block. And as we've heard from staff, our city planning staff agree with that the possibility for a mid-block public space there is significant. It's been identified through our secondary plan for King Spadina. The HCD will protect it, and it envisions this space. The challenge is how to get there, and it's tough to get there because this isn't necessarily city-owned land. It is different landowners. And so this is the art of the possible here. So the property owner at the adjacent site at 401 Richmond has expressed a desire to provide a park or publicly accessible space for the city. They have expressed a desire to do that, and it is in the city's interest to make that happen. The art of the possible here is to figure out how do you do that, understanding their parking and loading needs. If this was park, we could look at it from a Section 42 consideration. But parks are telling us this isn't parkland, so we need to get creative here. And I'm still not convinced that it's not parkland. So the current plan and the plan leading up to the supplementary report has envisioned the following: that there would be an easement provided by Greywood, that there would be money provided up front for design, and that there would as well be the POPs connection leading from Adelaide into the space. Now, that's part of the way there, but the opportunity for public space, for me and my comfort, needs to be locked down with these details. I don't want to leave it up to the possibility thereof with funding for design. I would like to know for sure. That's the certainty I need. And so I recognize and close that it must be frustrating for our development partner, Greywood, that this isn't just proceeding, given the good faith they've worked with us on. But I would say that let's roll up our sleeves, let's push hard while the urgency of now is here, and let's not miss the opportunity to create this new dynamic public space in an area that sorely needs it. And I would close by saying, as much as on that, as along with our chair of our parks, Councillor McMahon, I am certainly a big booster of a big move in King Spadina related to Rail Deck Park. That's not at the expense of identifying these other spaces to unlock opportunities. And with that, I will move the motion, and thank you very much for the time.
Any questions? Oh, okay, to speak, Councillor McMahon.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to compliment Councillor Cressy on his support, promotion, and pushing for more green space in our city, and I'm happy to support you on that endeavor for this before council. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else to speak? Okay, I guess we're ready to vote on the amendment. This is the item on the motion before us on the screen. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. That's unanimous. Oh, yeah, okay, the item as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. It's unanimous as well. Okay, before we go to the next item, which is actually item TE 27.6475 Yonge Street zoning amendment application final report, I understand that Councillor McMahon wants to withdraw TE 27.27. Councillor McMahon, are you ready to?
Yes, and that's upon the request of the applicants. So that is a front yard parking appeal. Councillor Perks, note that, withdrawing. Thank you.
Can we, is that on the, does clerks have that?
Completely.
Okay, the motion's on the screen. All those in favor of withdrawing? Any opposed? Do we have quorum? Yeah, okay, we do. Great, so that carries. The next item is Councillor Layton. You had, I think, two items that Councillor Cressy was holding for you.
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm assuming he's going to release them to you.
Yeah, and he was just holding them so I could be here for them. The first
Okay,
one's,
item 27.44.
I have an amendment, and that's City Council requests the General Manager of Transportation Services to report to City Council at its meeting November 7th on the traffic management strategy for the area around Exhibition Place during the Honda Indy. This is an approval for 3 additional years of closure of Lakeshore. I don't know if you ever go down to the Honda Indy, but it pretty much means while the cars are moving quick in Exhibition Place, they're not moving at all in Liberty Village. And so it would be nice if they took this into consideration and perhaps provided some traffic management down there. For the record, this is not me switching sides on the war for or against the car, but I do expect cars to move a little bit quicker than they are currently around the Honda Indy.
Does anyone have any questions or anyone else to speak? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? I need to see some hands, folks, sorry. You're opposed or no? Okay. Excuse me, madam, we're in the middle of a vote. Oh, okay, sorry, it's your staff, I didn't realize. Okay, sorry, we're just in the middle of a vote. So that seemed like it was unanimous. Okay, that carries. Item is amended. That carries. Item is 27.45.
Yes, thank you very much.
I mean, Councillor Layton.
The item is construction staging area, Phase 1 and 3, Markham Street, Mirvish Village. I have an amendment that adds some additional conditions, none of which are completely out of the ordinary. This is a Councillor Wong Tam special that I'm just adding on the ones that have not yet become standard issue conditions in the construction staging area.
Great. Anyone have any questions? Anyone else to speak? Okay, we'll take the vote. On the motion before us, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Item is amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
Thank you very much.
So now we are going to item 27.647.
Madam Chair, are we allowed to do quick releases, or?
Well, I would normally say yes, but we have a long speakers list on item 27.6. So there's still 10 o'clock items. So we're going to do 27.6. We'll do quick releases just after the lunch break. The first speaker on this is Michael Shelley. Sir, please approach, have a seat, and make sure your mic is working. The button is red.
Yeah, it's on.
Great. You have 5 minutes.
My name is Mike Shelley. I'm a long-term resident of City Park Co-op, which starts on the east side of the current Courtyard Marriott. This has been quite an experience for me, and I need to apologize, I think, even though I was a journalist, to various parties who have received my correspondence. I know that I might have seemed somewhat discombobulated, but I also say, however, being the ongoing ombudsman for a very large co-op will rattle anyone. So I've read and accessed as best various information that came to me rather not very easily. And I've ended up with a number of questions, 21 actually, and I take exception to this attachment 9 where it says, whereas Council of the City of Toronto has provided adequate information to the public and has held at least one public meeting in accordance with the Planning Act There's quite a few questions outstanding on this development proposal. They fall into two themes: the effect of 475 on City Park Co-op, in which the building right behind the hotel is 14 floors, and the planning issues out of the proposal. Now, I discovered that I could and should have sent my questions to the Toronto East York Community Council email, and those have just been sent to you. So my question is how to address those outstanding questions, because they are questions. And I'm wondering if perhaps KingSett might be willing to hold a community meeting, even in our community hall, to address those questions. So that's, in a nutshell, where I'm at in terms of my remarks today.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much. The next person to speak.
Wait. So I asked, are you going to hold a meeting?
So you don't get to, I'm sorry, the way it works here is you don't ask us questions. We get an opportunity to ask you questions. So you've made your submission.
So you will consider then?
Well, yes, we will consider it.
That's all that's needed. Okay, good.
Thank
Fair
you
enough. Thank
very much. The next person to dispute is Louis Nacarado, Unite Here Local 75. After that is Victor Jimenez and Eric Ma. So if Louis is in the house, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
First, I want to thank members of council and Madam Chair for taking the opportunity to hear me out. I've been an employee of the Marriott Courtyard Hotel now for almost 38 years. I'm the chief shop steward there. I represent 176 employees in total who will basically lose their jobs from this application. The initial application, which was made by KingSett, was to have a property which would have 298 rooms. This in itself was a bit of a shock, but I figured that, 298 rooms, it'll still provide some sort of working base for the staff that we have now. 176 employees who are presently employed by the courtyard would probably get down to about 70 to 80 individuals. I thought, well, maybe this could be something we could live with, through retirement. A lot of people would take retirement packages and, it would work out kind of well. Unfortunately, since the last time that I've sat in front of this council, the amendment has come through where that the property itself now, from going 298 rooms, is now down to 98 rooms. This means that out of the 176 individuals that are presently employed at this hotel, basically there will be less than 50 employed there. It'll be the removal of the laundry department, our banquet department. These are all long-serving employees who had relatively good jobs, which now are going to have to be thrown into a market looking for work, and the work is not there. There's no employment possibilities in the hotel industry. That's one of the items that I want to address. The other one is, because I guess I've literally grown up at that corner of Yonge and College, I've seen a lot of changes in that area. I think the city is making a mistake. There is too much infill being put into that area. We take a look at Yonge and Eglinton, where Councillor Matlow has pushed for office space to be put in at his project there at 1 Yonge Street. Why did this council drop the ball and not allow the same amount of hotel rooms, which are 575 hotel rooms, to be put back into this development? To allow a development of mixed use where you have a hotel along with a condominium. The initial application, which in itself was a concern, but was not. Now we've allowed this revision, and I understand that it's the city who wanted this revision, lowered the existing properties from the original application of 298 to 98 properties. I think that we're making a mistake. This was not allowed at Yonge and Eglinton. I don't think it should be allowed there. We've got condominiums sprouting out in that area. We've got the tea house coming in.
We have another property on Grenville. We have a property coming right across the street where St. Charles Tavern used to be. That whole block is being redeveloped. There's even an application in front for the Goodman Building, which is one of Toronto's historic landmarks, where they're going to build a tower behind the Goodman Building. The building on the southwest, or sorry, southeast corner, where the Shoppers Drug Mart is now, that building is being torn down and 2 more towers are being put in there. How many residential units are going to be allowed to go into that area before there's not enough support for it? There is no community area, community center. The subway will be overflowing with people trying to get in the mornings. I don't understand it, why we're allowing this much. There's no work and play. There's no potential for individuals to be employed in that area. It's becoming like a little bit of a bedroom community. I applaud Councillor Matlow for him basically forcing the development that's going on at Yonge and Eglinton to enact office space in that development. Why can't we have this developer, KingSet Property, enact jobs, hotel rooms in that area? What's the difference between hotel rooms and office space? They're both providing employment. They're both providing jobs and relatively good jobs to people who are difficult to employ. It's hard for us to find employment anywhere else. I want to just basically, in closing, thank you for your time, and thanks again.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for the applicant, for the deputant? Seeing none, okay. So we have 5 minutes to go before lunch. We are missing quorum. If I could get one body back in this room, and then get the next speaker, Victor Jimenez, to approach.
Good morning, Council. Thank you.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. As Louis mentioned before, he pretty much described the whole situation in that corner. I'm actually going to speak about how much of the employment has been going to be losing, because there's not only one proposal right now as we speak in the city. The city has going through about 8 proposals that's coming down the pipe. And all this is targeting hotels industry. The hotel industry is very, very needed in Toronto. There's a lot of things, the ripple effect, if you start removing all the hotels rooms that we have available in the city. Conventions, we got a bunch of colleges right now graduating. I'm a graduated from college, and there is so much job at stake, so much careers that people have chosen to do. I have been doing 11 years in this industry, but I know others, people who have been 30, 40, and it's really the stock of rooms in the city is going lower and lower and lower. So it's putting a big dent in the convention industry. It's putting a big dent in the kitchen staff. You name it. It's huge. There's over 2,000 jobs at stake. So it's not only from in a nice environment. It's non-union. It's big. I could say more, but he pretty much covered most of that what I said. But I could say that since I have been working in hotels industry, I have had the pleasure to meet a lot of families that come to Toronto daily on a weekly basis. They're spending a week, 2 weeks, and they come for the hospitals, and they don't know where to stay. They are talking about how high is going to be the price to pay to stay in the city, to bring their families to the hospital for care, that they also stay in the hotel. People who have the problem with their houses, they have to stay in hotels. There's a lot of at stake. College graduates, they will have a hard time. I graduated in 2003 in George Bryan College, and I had an incredible difficult time to find jobs, even in a career that I choose to do about 25 years. How easy, how difficult could it get? The council say, I know you have no way to say the developer to stop, but also you can actually have the opportunity to say, to stand up for the hospitality industry, which you all use when you travel abroad. It's good to stay in downtown Toronto. It's good to stay in downtown any city you visited. The thing is, it is important. It is important you're taking this and take it very seriously, because there is no other way. I see one hotel going down now. There's a Chelsea Hotel. There's a Royal York proposal. There's so many. What else would it take? Who is listening to the hospitality industry? All the developers, I'm pro-development. I really, really appreciate what the Toronto have becoming, a little bit more of a world-class city. But we don't have a bed to shelter this or to welcome these visitors. Where are they going to go? They're going to stay in the city of Markham, which is a great city, but it's far away from downtown. They're going to stay by the airport. It's a great area. However, it's far from downtown. So suppliers, kitchen staff, hotel, ladies who take care of the rooms, all these persons are going to be losing their jobs, and it's not really, really fair. So if you can, this council can do something about it and put a stop to this madness, it's just sending a message. By saying yes today, you're sending a message to every developer in the city that it's okay to come into the city and take away those jobs or careers. Let's just call it careers because some people have made a career of this. Let's get that clear. You're sending a message that it's okay to come and take the hotel away and turn it away into condominiums, which become a ghost town, basically. So thank you very much, this council. I appreciate that, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, we're going to take a recess back at 1:30, and we're going to be back with this item still at 10 o'clock.
Joe, are you walking over for some food? What's that?